The question is, whenever those big advances in technology come, what does it do to us as human beings? And we're seeing it right now with the strike in Hollywood. Like, it is something that is we're worried about, because do we want to be fully replaced as screenwriters, as filmmakers, with generated content?
The movie is so much fun, but it's also so deep and so like it makes you think. So it was such a good sci-fi movie.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
What inspired the story for The Pod Generation?
So it was a combination of a lot of different things, but I think the most important one was when I was expecting my daughter 13 years ago. I had a dream journal and I would write all my dreams. And I had a lot of very strange dreams. I think something happens in your brain with all the hormones and the fact that you're about to do something pretty important for humanity, which is putting a life on this planet. So a lot of all the dreams that you see in the film are dreams that I had. And also, I love Brave New World. I love science fiction as a genre, and George Orwell and 2001 Space Odyssey. So I think a lot were influences from all the science fiction that I love, and also trying to continue the exploration of the theme I'm exploring in my first film called Souls, which is about the commodification of everything. And so, in Cold Souls, you could commodify your soul, and here you can commodify the womb. And so just like a way to explore our relationship to capitalism and to ourselves as human beings. Like, what do we want from technology? What is the future that we would want to have as a society? So it's all questions that I love to explore as a human being and as a filmmaker.
Can you talk to me a little bit about working with Emilia Clarke and what she brought to the role that wasn't necessarily on the page?
Yeah, so Emilia is a wonderful actress because she has, the goofiness and the kind of physical comedy aspect that we've seen her doing in a lot of big rom-coms or comedies. And then she has a very serious, more dramatic aspect, which is the more like Game of Thrones, Shakespearean aspect of her acting abilities. So it was fun to see her stretching her muscles in the film in those two directions. She would have almost a Charlie Chaplin a physical comedy aspect when she's holding the pod and not knowing what to do with it. And then when it's all the dreams, she has a much more melancholic and serious and a poetic approach to the material. So, every actor bring their persona, they bring who they are, and then they bring their craft. And Emilia is a very spontaneous and very lovable and charming and open human being. So I think she also brings all this on top of all her craft and the 10,000 hours that she probably spent acting on Games of Thrones.
I thought Chiwetel was so much fun in this, and I'm so used to seeing him in these big, serious, dramatic roles. Can you talk a little bit about exploring that more rom-com funny side with him?
That was the beauty of Chiwetel. I think he's someone who, he's been acting in 12 Years a Slave and like very serious things, and he's done Shakespeare, and then he comes to this, completely open-minded, and with such elegance and like completely sense of self-derision. Like, not that many actors were willing to goof around with a plastic egg and pretend they're like fathers, and so I think he has this simplicity about him, and the command of the craft is very impressive. Like, he would come super prepared. He takes his job very seriously as an actor. The craft, he takes it very seriously, and you feel like the amount of love and dedication he puts into composing a role. So there is like I was very admirative of like how in command he is of what he's doing, but he knows how to let go, and he knows how to be playful and have fun with the material. So he brought, I couldn't have get a better actor for the role. And it was hard to cast because a lot of men were reluctant to, be so goofy or look so ridiculous. And he never looks ridiculous. Even with his egg on his belly, he's still elegant and charming, and, the Chiwetel that is so seductive. But he has this playfulness that I think is very entertaining.
He looks unexpectedly natural with a giant plastic egg.
Yeah, right? Yeah, he makes it graceful. But like the thing is, he was expecting a baby, his first baby. So I think he was already living in his private life all the hormonal change of being a father soon. And we had to actually, for the shoot, we had to incorporate a 1 month paternity leave just at the moment that his companion was due to make sure he could be with his baby. And I think because he had all these hormones, probably he made it more complex and interesting for him to play that role. And when he came back to shoot the end of the film, he was already a father. So when he's holding, when the connection with the baby is like something he had just been through in his private life. So I think it probably made it even more complex and profound for him.
The advancement of technology is very, very hot topic today, very relevant today. And can you talk to me a little bit about what do you hope people take away from the pod generation about balancing the advancement with technology with like nature and humanity?
Yeah, that's the big theme, that I'm trying to explore I try to explore my first film too. I think technology is wonderful, but the problem is regulation and what it does to us, what we're ready to give from ourselves as humans just to get convenience and just for progress. And these are, ethical questions that we need to ask ourselves, because this technology right now in the film is more a metaphor. The egg is more like an allegory or a metaphor about our relationship to technology in general. So, it happens to be a baby or the womb, but it could be anything. It could be ChatGPT with the eye. And so the question is, whenever those big advances in technology come, what does it do to us as human beings? And we're seeing it right now with the strike in Hollywood. Like, it is something that we're worried about, because do we want to be fully replaced as screenwriters, as filmmakers with, generated content? And these are just a few people deciding this in Silicon Valley, and they haven't been necessarily elected or chosen by the other citizens. And they're having a lot of power in their hands, and they're deciding the future of humanity without having been officially elected in that position. So at least we need to have that debate about regulation and what do we do with all this technology, because it's going extremely fast. When the film came out at Sundance for the premiere, it was the week that ChatGPT was released. And suddenly I felt like the film was outdated already. Like all the things I had imagined were already a possibility. And probably the artificial womb would exist very soon. So for me, it's about this idea that the more we think we can control nature, the more nature reminds us all the time that it's actually controlling us. You can't just commodify nature and think you're in control. And we see it with climate change, like everything that's happening today in the world, all the fires, the nature is doing its thing, and we can't control it. It's too late almost. We can still find solutions through technology to try to do something about climate change, but we've created a huge problem that now we need to solve. So it's how we function as a species, and we'll see where it goes.
What did you find most surprising about working on the pod generation?
Well, I think it was it's the nature of making films. It's we're shooting during COVID times, so we had to be very resourceful because we had very limited time. We all had our masks, and I think it was just trying to get it all in the camera, and in such a drastic condition where we didn't want the actors to get, of course, to be exposed and risk their health. And so, it's the history of filmmaking. It's always you have the fantasy and the perfect film in your head, and then once you're trying to make it, the reality hits you, and then you have to always compromise and find solutions and trying to get this film made. But the hardest was to trying to get it financed and get people to understand why I was trying to make this film and what it meant to me, and that because the genre is so strange. It's a satire, but it's science fiction, and it's trying to explore philosophical questions. So it's like trying to convince people to come on board, right?
I loved it. So I get that, but I think you pulled it off completely perfectly.
Thank you.
One of the beats I found, because there were so many great quotes in this, but one of the beats that really stood out to me was early in the film when Emilia's character was kind of pitching one of their ideas at the company, and someone asked, won't this technology make us irrelevant? And someone said, technology never makes people irrelevant. Can you talk about including that moment? Because it stuck with me the whole movie.
Yeah, because it's the hypocrisy, right? Of if you talk to people that are in the Silicon Valley, I've been recently to talk to people in artificial intelligence because I want to make a series about it. And they all tell you like, there's this form of denial that is, it's a very human thing to do. It's to just justify what you're doing. And, I think a very similar endeavor was for the making of the atomic bomb. It was made because we made it. Like no one said, no, you can't do this thing. And that's what happens every time there's a new technology. We make it just because we can. And then once it's made, we have to assess what are the implications for humanities. And that's what happened, with all the issues around Instagram and Facebook, that the disruption for democracy, what it did to some teenagers. None of this has been regulated, and we're doing the exact same thing again with artificial intelligence. So we don't learn any lessons. We keep doing, and some, like for instance, in Europe, they are regulating artificial intelligence already, and now there's the strike. So there are some reactions to it, but you feel like humanity has this propensity to do the same thing again and again and again until we hit a wall, and then we have to reassess why we developed this technology. And but it is a fact that artificial intelligence is going to make a lot of people redundant, and very few people are going to profit from this, and a lot of people are going to lose their jobs. And then the answer would be like, yeah, but that was the exact same thing during the Industrial Revolution, for sure. But this is like at a scale that is, it's, you can't even compare, because you're talking about most of the jobs are going to be replaceable unless we regulate and we say, no, this has to be made by a human, because otherwise, what are all these people going to be doing? Or you can replace it with other type of jobs, which is a possibility. But we'll see. We'll see where it goes. I just feel like it's going very, very fast, and there's very little debate around it, and regulation and ethical debate about is that really something that we want as a species.
I completely agree with you. I really want to see your take on AI now too. What did you learn from working on the pod generation that you'd like to bring into future projects, whether it's that AI series or something else?
Just to be adaptable, like when people tell you no, try to understand why, and then just to not give up. I think that's the lesson that every filmmaker has in the independent world is, most of the people are not going to understand why you're trying to do and tell you no, because it's a very expensive endeavor to make a film. And this one is a small independent film, but still for an independent film, it's, you have to be responsible as a filmmaker and make sure your investors recoup. And so yeah, I think the lesson for me for every film is try to understand how to convince people to follow you and jump on that boat and sail together. It's a difficult job, but you don't give up. If you give up, that's it. You're not making any other film. So there's no choice.
Well, I love it. I'm right there with you on whatever you're going to make next. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me. And
thank you.
I just love pod generation. I think it's so good.
Thank you. It means a lot. I'm happy you connected with it.